My M28, girlfriend, 25, jealous of baby. Please accept my apologies in advance for the length of this, but I need assistance. My girlfriend, whom we'll refer to as Jane, and I have been together for around 2 years. She was quite kind and polite, and we got along very well with one another. Work is something I like doing, and she understood and was okay with my long hours. She got pregnant not long after they started dating, which shocked me, but I cared about Jane, so I wasn't too angry about it. The fact that she was positive that it would be a boy didn't bother me, but the possibility of having a son made me happy. We found out it was a girl, and although I was still overjoyed, she was less than thrilled. When it came to the baby and the pregnancy, I saw a difference in her attitude toward them. I spoke to my sister about it, and she informed me that gender disappointment is a common occurrence, so I didn't give it much thought after that. Since the birth of my daughter, who is now 6 months old, I've been feeling an increasing sense of jealousy. For example, I work a lot and feel like I don't get to see my daughter's milestones and her development as she grows up. So I asked Jane to send photographs, and Jane becomes unhappy and wonders why I don't ask her to send images of her own growth and development. For example, one time I was at home, and my daughter had fallen asleep on the couch for a nap, and Jane began to attempt to wake me up, but I asked her to stop because the baby was right next to me and I wasn't comfortable, and Jane responded by saying always about the baby and storming out of the house. When I highlighted our baby's intellect to Jane the other day, she responded with a sigh and a scoff, "I honestly don't see it." In other words, if someone praises my daughter on her attractiveness, Jane will react with something like, "Well, I am wonderful, so that's why." I'm completely at a loss on what to do. I'm attempting to establish a balance between my profession, my relationship, and my responsibilities as a parent, but I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. Despite the fact that Jane is a stay-at-home mom, which is okay with me since I make enough money. My sister recently said that when she came to visit, Jane didn't seem to connect with our child and spent much of the day on her phone. I did some research and realized that postpartum depression is a real thing, so I asked Jane if she would want to talk to someone about it, and she grew even more upset with me as a result. I had planned on proposing to my girlfriend on our anniversary, but I'm now apprehensive. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in a constant state of competition with my child. Do you have any recommendations? I'm at a loss on what to do at this point. Does anybody know if there is anything I'm doing incorrectly? Update. I've asked Jane's sister to watch the baby while Jane and I go out for dinner and a date night tomorrow night, and I'm going to use some of the suggestions. I've read to chat with her and find out how she feels about the situation. I'm also going to ask her for her thoughts on the situation. I also recognize areas in which I fall short when it comes to Jane as a person and as my partner, and I'll make an effort to fill up those gaps as best I can. After our date night is over, I'll make a separate post to share my thoughts with everyone. Story 2. I had an affair with my childhood best friend's girlfriend. It all began in 2017 during one of my closest friend's college graduation parties. At the time of the party, he had been dating a girl we knew from elementary school for nearly 3 years. My buddy, let's call him Chris, and I had been in the same friends group since middle school, so we were extremely close, but no one in the group knew his girlfriend well. I made a point of include her in our friend group at his party, even going so far as to have all of our friends add her on Snapchat. She was extremely touchy-feely with me, laughing at everything I said during the party, and because it was my first time seeing her in person, I assumed it was usual of her. Anyway, after the party, she would snap me every day, all day, every day, and it would be continuous back-to-back snaps. I assumed this was normal since I was attempting to form a relationship with her. She would tell me she was going to marry my buddy, and I would always be supportive. She had long dark brown hair, a tiny waist, was around 5'6" tall, and was incredibly busty. Whenever we took photographs at night, she would constantly give me images that totally exposed her cleavage, and I never said anything since I attributed it to her bustiness. As we spoke more, she began sending images of herself in the shower, revealing all of her cleavage and up. I never made any approaches and just pretended to be a buddy. At this point, I was becoming suspicious, so I questioned my other friends whether she had continued to snap photos after the party, but it turned out she had never begun snapping them after the party. We were becoming pretty good friends a few weeks after the party. We'd often make jokes with one another, and I'd get the same photographs she usually sent. When I got a typical shower snap, cleavage and up, I responded sarcastically with a photo of an eye spying on her. She answered that she would like it if I peeked in on her bathing. After this, I was certain that I was being set up by my buddy, Chris, so I decided to act as any sensible person would, by saying something exceedingly hazardous in order to get this over with. I decided to write her a lengthy text about giving her a back massage that would lead to me kissing her neck and rubbing her boobs and butt. She informed me she came only from reading the post. After that, things became more exciting by the day, with people saying things, sending unsafe photos, and talking about up. After about a week, she says she wants to meet in person and kiss me once simply to get this stress out of her system. Of course, when the night we agreed to meet up approached, we both pushed the limits further and farther, eventually deciding that no actions would be performed, but we did want to see each other nude and kiss. I was really looking forward to this since I was still living with my ex at the time and things were quickly coming to an end with her. She came over as soon as everyone had left my place on the day we finally agreed to hang together. As she sat next to me on the bed, I was wondering whether this was okay, but before we could do anything, she rushed at me and began kissing me, which eventually led to us being nude and going down on one another. We kept doing this for a few more weeks. It even got to the point of bringing my buddy Chris down to my beach home with her and up with her many times throughout the night as he slept. We agreed that she would not leave him and that this would just be a temporary situation. We would always snuggle and converse after we finished up. She opened up about all the troubles in her relationship, including the component, which was dead since my buddy was bad at, and many other concerns. She stated she loved him, and I didn't want her to abandon him, so this worked for the time being. She, too, started telling me about how he was constantly spreading tales about me and our other friends to strangers and her, to the point where she felt I was this gigantic piece of, which I really am after this. Now that I dislike my former best buddy Chris because of his statements, I found even greater joy in up with his girlfriend, especially when we took showers together, did things, and then she crawled back into bed with him in the room next to us. He had no idea what was going on. Finally, the fatal day arrived. We had been up for approximately 3 weeks and decided we wanted more. That day we decided to have. It was a Friday and they had plans to hang together that night. He lived around the corner from me, so she was at my home while he was at work. That was fantastic, perhaps of the greatest I'd ever had or done. She decided to call it quits with him that night after just 15 minutes at his place, since she couldn't tolerate the sight of him any longer. She phoned me weeping and returned to my place, so I tried to cheer her up by taking her out to supper. While we were heading to dinner, our other closest buddy from the group saw us and texted me about the lady I was with. Chris texted the group chat a few minutes later, claiming his girlfriend had just broken up with him. My second buddy immediately saw the connection. I told him everything and asked if he was going to inform anybody. He claimed he wouldn't, so I informed the rest of the buddy group. I thought they were entitled to know all Chris had circulated about them behind their backs. Except for Chris, practically everyone was aware of the affair at this time. He was quite upset about it, so we all hung around and supported him as much as we could, despite knowing everything he said. I kept asking him, being the jerk that I am, whether he believed she cheated or was seeing someone else, and the entire time he claimed she was faithful and would never do that to him. Fast forward a few months, and she became very attached and reliant on me, phoning me at all hours of the night simply to hear me say I still loved her. She determined we couldn't go public for at least a year to preserve her looks and Chris' sentiments. I couldn't stand her incessant need for reassurance, so I called it quits, but we continued to sleep together for another year and a half before splitting up. Chris is still unaware of the affair to this day. Everyone saw him for the horrible man he was and discontinued their relationship with him soon after. I have no regrets and would do it again if I could. I just wanted to share as a confession of what I've done.